What's up? How you doing? Here we are. Beautiful night tonight. Well, technically it's early morning Sunday, 12:33 a.m. Sunday morning. Lipton tea. That tea gets more and more delicious every time I have it. I love Lipton tea. I've said it before, but I'm going to say it again. It reminds me of my high school teacher, history teacher, sophomore year. Nicest guy. I can't tell you how nice this guy was. He was one of those genuine people, or some people say genuine, but he really cared. You know, it wasn't that artificial, I care. This was like, he really cared, and I always respected him for that. Nicest guy. If you had to pick somebody in your life that you would trust with something that you didn't have any connection with, like he's not a friend or a family member, I'd pick him. Really, really nice person. Died a few years ago, but when I have Lipton tea, I remember him. I sat in the first row, and early in the morning, I had him first period. I had homeroom, then history first period. So around 8:20, 8:15 in the morning, history lesson. And he had a thermos, like I have a bunch of the Stanley olive green ones, metallic green, whatever those colors are called. And in the morning he would sit, the desk was right in front of mine, and he would open it up nice and slow, take the cap off in slow motion, put it down, the steam would go up, and then he would take his little cup and he would pour. And I remember one time I was explaining that he used to drink a lot of coffee, and then he switched to tea, and I could smell the Lipton tea from the first row. And I would always think, I wish they would allow me to bring some tea. They didn't allow you back then to bring anything like that. Not even water. If you were thirsty, they would say, go in the hallway and drink some water in the water fountain area. But yeah, really nice person. And I remember certain situations with him, and it's just mind-blowing how much he cared. Anyway, so to my teacher from 10th grade. You know what that is? That's a Parker. I have probably a couple of dozen of these right now floating around the house somewhere. And Parker is very special to me. 70 to 80% of everything I've written in my life has been done with a Parker. Rarely in school would you see me using anything but a Parker. And to this day, I use a Parker. I even wrote him a letter over the last summer, telling them what a fan I am of Parker, and they responded. So, I like the way it feels. The one thing that has changed, though, and I mentioned it in my letter, but they didn't address it at all. The old Parker pens, when you would write, like I will not talk in class while the teacher is teaching 500 times, when you would do that, you'd smell the paper, and it had a very sweet ink aroma. I can't describe it. I mean, if I were to describe that smell, I would say it smells like Parker pen ink. These new ones now do not smell that way. So it smells like regular ink. So somewhere along the line somebody changed the formula. I'm assuming it's cheaper to make this kind of ink than it was the other one. The other one had a very, like if you wrote something and then somebody who had a nose for ink took a little whiff, they would tell you that's a Parker pen. And it was the only one that I could identify. And now Parker smells like any other pen. But I continue to buy it because I'm very nostalgic. Sometimes I get stuck in nostalgia. I don't know. So today, Saturday, I went and I bought some cowboy boots. I'll tell you something funny about cowboy, the word cowboy. My whole life, I mean, not my whole life, but a good portion of my younger life, I would hear cowboy. Look at those cowboys. You hear the L in there, right? So I thought there was always an L. Cowboy. Cowboy. I don't know why the L was in there, but, you know, people I grew up with, they all said the L. Cowboy. And then I started looking at it. I go, wait a minute. That's cowboy. Cowboy. And it doesn't have the same appeal. It doesn't have the same feel. You know, cowboy sounds good because I'm used to it that way. But now I say cowboy. Cowboy seems very abrupt. You need that L, like a slope, to get into the boy word. So I got some boots. Big box here. I'm just gonna take one of them out. Good, rich smell of leather. And this is bison leather, which is thick. The guy said to me it's gonna take a bit to break them in, but you gotta be patient. And I know bison is hard to break in. Look at that. Look at the bottoms here. Nice boot. Nice heel in the back. Got the nails. So I'm very, very happy. Very happy I bought these. Yeah, that's nice, rich smelling leather, and thick. Now the breaking in. I've seen videos on how to break these in a little bit quicker, but I'm not going to do it that way. I'm going to do it the old-fashioned way. I'm going to wear them and walk with them, and eventually they will break in. But when they do break in, they are the most comfortable boot you can buy. Now, the trick I saw is that you fill them up with water, let the water sit for a little bit, empty it, then you put your foot in there with the socks, and you walk around all day until the water, the dampness dries out. But I'm going to tell you why I'm not doing it that way. Because if you put a wet foot in here all day, the bacteria, the fungus that's going to grow in here is going to be impossible to get rid of after. You're going to ruin the shoe trying to kill that stuff. So I'm not going to do that. Otherwise this boot is going to smell like crap. So yeah, this is really nice leather, very, very soft. And look at the heel. So I put them on, and I had a hard time putting them on. I was sweating. So I put my foot in here, and it went all the way to a certain point. And then right here, where the curve is, my foot would not go any further than that. And I pulled and I pulled, and I was imagining pulling so hard that I would rip the leather. It didn't happen because it's thick leather. But eventually I did get it on. I said to the guy, you have a shoehorn, long shoehorn I can put in there and push down? And he goes, yeah. So he goes over at the other desk and he brings me this flimsy shoehorn about that long, right? About that long. Shoehorn's here, but it's connected to some spring system. So the slightest push bends it, and whatever. I said there, don't you have something like what I have? Bamboo, really strong. When you're younger, you don't need this, but when you get older, you don't want to bend down and put the shoe on. So it's easy for me to grab this and put my shoe on with the help of this shoehorn made out of bamboo. So let's see what it says here. Little flies. I don't know if you can read that, but American bison leather. Now, bison, as far as the steak, is very good, very good. So I was watching, what are they called? The Bearded Butchers. They're on YouTube. You can go and check them out. And one time they were talking about bison. I'm like, yeah, I don't like gamey tasting things. But they said, you know what? Surprisingly, bison is not gamey. It's low in fat, so you have to cook it less than regular meat. Otherwise, if you cook it like a steer, it'll dry out and become like leathery. And so they said, a little bit of cooking. So that's what I did. I put it on, boom, 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 took it off the fire, and I ate it, and it has a sweetness to it. Delicious. Delicious. Now, buffalo, bison, they're related, but I cannot stand buffalo. Maybe I ate a portion of the buffalo that was not that good, but one time me and my bride, we were traveling cross country, kind of like the Little House on the Prairie people, and we saw a place that said Buffalo Burgers. So we went in there, hungry. Sat down, I ordered the burger, I ate it. It was very gamey. I ate it, but it was not what I wanted. If I had known, now I know I don't get Buffalo Burgers anymore. But bison is good. That tea is delicious. I love tea. Love tea. So yeah. Can't wait to break this in. It says built to last, premium comfort. I have a lot of shoe shine products. I use the good stuff. I don't use kiwi. I used to use kiwi when I was younger. I don't use that anymore. But put it on here, shine it up, buff it out. If you really want to get it to shine on the toe area, you get a handkerchief and rotation with water. I never ever use spit. I find that disgusting. I know, I've seen videos. I'll mention the channel Wrangler Star. I saw him one time sharpening up an axe, and he used spit to lubricate the sharpening stone, and I did not like that. Did not like that. I don't know, find out what spit has in it and find something else in nature, like a stick of butter, I don't know, and use that instead of saliva. You got a whole shoe full of bacteria crawling around after you do that. So I'm not interested, but yeah, I got all these good products. Nourishes the leather. I shine it up, buff it out with the brush. Then I'll use my 2 fingers. I wrap around the cloth, and then dip some water in from the sink tap, and then rotation. Over time, they become like a mirror. Now these are not, obviously, these are not designed. This is not the kind of leather that gets that shiny. This is more like a boot leather. But I do have dress shoes that I made into mirrors. So these will get nice and, shiny enough, but not to the point where it looks like, they're mirrors. I tell you one thing, I miss going to the car show, the auto show here in LA. Years ago, we wouldn't miss one. We would go every single year, and my kids were really little back then, and they would try out every car. They would climb into the trucks, they would climb into the convertibles. But I'm a car guy, but I'm not just new cars. I admire the technology, the comfort, the advancements that have taken place the past 50 years. But I also appreciate the old muscle cars from the 60s and 70s. That stuff you see elsewhere. You don't see that stuff at the car show, where you see the modern stuff. But the muscle cars, they have a place like in Pomona. I was out there, what year was it, 2009 maybe. And who did I see there? Henry Winkler, Arthur Fonzarelli, and Joni there, Aaron Moran. And he was taking pictures. People could take pictures with him and her, $10 a pop. That's nothing. I think today it would probably be $30. And I think he was doing it to help her out. Although I don't understand that helping out thing. Why not? You're a wealthy guy. What are you doing sitting there for hours collecting $1,000? Give her a check, 50 grand. Tell her, fix your life, do some rehab, whatever, whatever the issue is. I know she had cancer too, so it wasn't just a matter of rehab. She had a lot of issues. But he's trying to help her, but $10. I can understand if you're not wealthy and you just can't help her any other way, so you present yourself, your personality, and people come and they take pictures and you give her the money. But you have money. You could have helped her by just giving her a little bit, first and last month's rent, maybe a year's gift certificate to buy groceries at Ralph's. Although I will say, whatever he did, is still good. But I'm saying, that's more like if a guy doesn't have money himself, and you say, what, I'll help you out. I used to be famous 30 years ago. We'll go to a car show, take pictures. I'll give you the money. You take that money and, pay the rent. And even the other guy, Richie Cunningham, Ron Howard. Now, he's a really rich guy. He could have helped her out. Now, maybe they have helped her out. I don't know. I'm not, involved with their family matters. I found her story, though, very sad. It's like, especially back then when she wasn't well. Very sad to see her go like that. But anyway, the Fonz was very nice that day. Gave my bride a back rub. I didn't know it at the time, but we were taking pictures. We gave him the $10, like, here's the 10. And then he gave us like a, one of these things. But he didn't do it to me, but to my wife, he gave a little rub on the neck. He was in character, I think, the Fonz. And then I've seen him a couple of times since then. One time, I know I mentioned it before, I'm mentioning it again for people that haven't seen the previous stuff, but one time I saw him at a restaurant, and he got a call, so he went outside and he was talking to somebody. And I told my bride, I said, when he gets off that phone, I'm going to go and I want to talk to him. I want to mention something to him. I knew somebody close. I was friends with somebody that knew him way back when they were going to Emerson College. And I said, I wish I remembered back then when I met him to ask him about that person, if he remembered him. But I didn't remember it. So I go, now, I'm going to go ask him now. So he gets off the phone, and I rush out. And I guess I was walking a bit fast, and I spooked him. I made him back up a few feet, and I want to tell him I come in peace. So I asked him the question. I said, I wanted to ask you something. I had a friend, I said to him, that claimed he knew you back in Emerson, and he goes, oh, what's his name? And I told him the name, and then he told me, repeat it, and I repeated it, and then he said to me, I'm sorry, I'm sure that's true, but I don't remember him. I said, it's okay, I know, long time ago. And then he apologized again. I go, it's okay. And then I thought about it after, when I got home. I said, you know what? I should have told him the person I'm talking about was on the same fencing team as you, or you guys did fencing together. And I forgot to mention that. At that point, he should have remembered, because this person was rather tall. He was like 6'5", right? Especially in those days. And especially compared to Henry Winkler. I think Henry Winkler's like 5'5", so 6'5" is quite a difference. And maybe he would have remembered it. He would have been, oh yeah. So I did run into him again after that. I was at a restaurant, and they had the fish lined up on the ice on the other side. So I said, you know what, I'm going to go over there and check the fish out. And I went over there, and as I went, I passed by a table, and there's Henry Winkler. Somebody said something funny, and he was laughing, out of control laughing. You know, he had his hands on his chest, and he was like, and he had like a beige suit on, I remember. So I said, I'd never seen Henry Winkler laugh that much. But I did not talk to him that day. That was the last time I saw him. Quiet night. Every once in a while you hear a car go by. I remember when I was a kid, it would be, I don't know, I'd get up at like 1 o'clock in the morning. When you're a kid, those hours seem like they're in some other dimension, like, you know, out of reach, because you're always asleep at that time. So I remember I'd get up at 1 and I'd pull the curtain, and I'd look outside the window, and I'd see a lonely car going by with a driver. And I go, where's that guy going at 1 a.m. in the morning? But yeah, back in the old days, anything after 11 o'clock was extremely late. You know, I was usually upstairs in my room by 10:45, and I was sleeping by 11. And then I would get up a few minutes before 7, did my my daily shower, get in there, you know, lather up. We were ivory soap people. My mother did not like fragrance at all. And then I remember Coast came out, the eye opener. Had these people that go in there all drowsy in the shower, and then they'd smell that, and they'd, you know, wake up like they were smelling that, what's that, Epsom salt? What was that called? I don't even know, that stuff they use in boxing that, you know, makes you awake. Awakens you. Yeah, I brought that into the house, and my mother she was overwhelmed. She's like, what is that smell? I'm like, it's called soap. It's right there. That's it. That's what it is. So she was used to the ivory. You know, I'm not really sure anymore. Does ivory still float? I remember when I was really young, Saturday night baths was a big deal. You know, I'd fill up the water level up to, you know, maybe 6 inches from the top, and I'd get in there and I'd have the ivory soap floating around like a little boat, and I would take my hot bath, and I would be in there for like an hour. Then I'd rinse off, you know, whatever, But I don't know. I haven't tried. I do have a bar of ivory upstairs. I'm going to try when I go up if it still floats. Yeah, I tried Coast, which I like. It's a good soap. I've tried Irish Spring. I like that soap. I've tried Dove. What's going on here? What's the other one there? The Zest. You're not fully clean unless you're Zest fully clean. I've tried that. There was another one, Tony it was called. It was like cocoa butter soap. Had a nice smell. I'll tell you one thing though about cocoa butter. Smell and music, they bring me back to where I was when I first experienced whatever fragrance it was or whatever song it was. And I'll give you an example. I had a friend in 5th grade, his name was Carl. And Carl looked exactly like Benson from the comedy show Benson, worked for the governor. He was like the butler or something, or maybe he was more than a butler. But anyway, he looked like a miniature version of him. So we had swimming in the 5th grade once a week. And I'm telling you, we had Ken and Barbie as swim teachers, whatever you call them, instructors. Now I already knew how to swim because I would spend my summers down the Cape. So I learned how to swim when I was really little. And so by the time I was in 5th grade, I knew how to swim well. But a lot of kids didn't. So anyway, we do the swimming thing, and that school had a nice swimming pool. And had that chlorine smell in the air when you go in. And then later on after, when we would get out of the pool and rinse, my friend Carl had a big thing of cocoa butter, or a pump, cocoa butter cream. And he would put, a bunch of it on, and when I smell that now, it reminds me of that gym area in that school, LAPD. I don't know, every night they're going somewhere. I'm here. Every night they're doing something. So anyway, he was a good kid, good friend to me. We would eat breakfast together every morning. I'd go down in the cafeteria and grab a teeny weeny box of cereal, and I'd eat breakfast with my friend Carl. And another thing I remember about him is that every Saturday his mother would take him to Church's Fried Chicken. And I know this because he would say it on Monday. And I've never been to Church's Fried Chicken. I've been to Kentucky Fried Chicken and a few other chicken places, but never Church's. I had a friend named Patrick. And Patrick was amazing at drawing. He was phenomenal. I mean, he was just amazing. One time we was sitting there at a side table, and he was, looked like he was doodling. And I look, and he was drawing all the famous cartoons. He had Scooby-Doo, he had the Flintstones, he had Tweety Bird. And I'm looking at him, and I go, wow, that's amazing. I mean, I don't know if he ended up becoming a cartoonist or something, but he had the talent at that young age. I mean, you're born with that kind of talent. Somebody can teach you, yes, they can teach you, but you're not going to be as good as the guy who has the talent naturally. Just, genetically, he's able to draw. But yeah, he was You would say, draw the Jetsons, and he would draw the Jetsons. So who knows? I haven't spoken to any of them since those years. Now they're old men, probably with canes. Funny. I've located a few of my friends from high school, which I haven't had any contact with since high school. And I will send them, I'll find their email or something, and I'll send them a message telling them, it's me. And it's like they don't trust, they think it's someone else impersonating, somebody trying to scam them. They don't even bother asking, hey, is it you for real? Can you prove it? Got Halloween coming up. Halloween was a big deal when I was a kid. CVS, I don't know, people my age, they remember these days, but CVS would sell those plastic masks with the vinyl costume, and they came in a box, and you'd go to CVS and you'd pay like $15 and you'd get this outfit, and you'd put the plastic mask on, nice and hard, stiff, and then you'd go out. Some kids, they would bring pillowcases. I never brought a pillowcase, and I have never been jumped. Because in those days, some kid would say, "Oh, they took my candy." Some kid came and took my candy. I wouldn't even think of taking anybody's candy. I would collect the candy and eat like 2 or 3 things out of that bunch, and the rest of it would go in the garbage. It was just the experience. Going out with your friends at night, walking around, and the smell of the leaves on the ground as you move through them, fall time crispness in the air. I guess my battery on my light has died. I gotta get a light that has a longer life on that battery. It doesn't last that long. Anyway, all right. That's it for now. Ciao.